lucky day today because it's nothing but it's International Women's Day. So as you say that women are behind every successful man, so I guess something like that was today. So as we celebrate our International Women's Day, I want to take a moment to extend our heartfelt wishes for all the incredible women in our organization. We are 13 of us today, Neha? Great. And I think Neha has been adding some more women to the workforce. Neha, how many more women to join in the next few months? So another 3 to 4 women joining. I think that's a good number for us. We've grown rapidly when it comes to women employees. So we just want to say that your dedication, resilience and talents enrich Sunshore every single day. And we recognize and honor the invaluable contributions that you make, not just to Sunshore, but to the society as a whole. So let us continue to strive for gender equality, empower one another, and create a more inclusive environment where we all can thrive. So happy Women's Day to all our amazing employees. So today we've called, I'll request Chetan if you can ask Ms. Sudha Menon. As you can see, she's going to be doing a speaking session for us today, and let's just wait for her to come and join us. Let's welcome Sudha ma'am. Hi, good evening ma'am, please come.
Wow, full house.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure to see that.
So, ma'am, I'll just introduce you. Yeah, I mean, of course,
That's the most embarrassing part, so we can even skip that.
No, ma'am, I must do that. So Ms. Sudha Menon, and this is a very brief one, and I'm sure she has a lot of laurels to her, but I'm just going to speak a very few lines on this. So, Ms. Sudha Menon is a former business journalist. She will speak to us about crucial life lessons she has learned over the last few decades by working closely with and interviewing some of the most India's accomplished and admired leaders from across different walks of life. And in the words of Sudha ma'am, meeting these luminaries and interacting with them taught her things about life, success and contentment, and how to deal with failure in a way no management school ever teaches us. She will talk, among other things, the things that she's learned from interviewing boxing champ Mary Kom. She's interviewed our superstar Shah Rukh Khan, wow, Biocon founder Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, Chanel's, oh really? Wow, Chanel's CEO Leena Nair, and director Farha Khan. So I think it's amazing, guys, awesome. Cracking the secret to a successful, contented, fulfilled life is simple. If you're open to adapting circumstances and adopting methods and attitudes that will help you learn and grow is what Sudha ma'am says. With this, I'll hand over the mic to her, and the stage is all hers.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. And it's really nice to see so many people here. And usually what happens is when somebody calls me for a Women's Day thing, I see 1 or 2 lone men and then a sea of women's faces. And I always say, no, when there is a Women's Day, even being celebrated, I want to see the male colleagues. It's no longer Women's Day. I think it's no longer anything to do with gender. It's just, I think, a collaborative effort where we all stand up for each other. Gurmeet, you just said that. Let's all stand up for each other. That's what it should be actually. We all stand up for each other and empower each other and move on to get to wherever we want to be in life. So, when your organization actually reached out to me to come and talk to you here, I said yes, I'd love to come and talk, and I would like to talk about the things that have immensely helped me to transform my own life. And I would love for all of you to sort of adapt, adopt, whatever it is that you can get out of this talk, because I found that these are the little things that matter, but these are the little things that we so often overlook, because we have all been told by management gurus to do a lot of things which most of us find exclusively difficult to do. So I just said, let me share some life experiences and then see where you can take from it and make something. I'll speak to you today about reinventing yourself. And I think that is such a crucial part of the world that we live in today. You know, especially post-COVID and all the economic crises that have come after that, and all. We live in a different world now, isn't it? Each of you have something. COVID has done something to each of us in a way we never thought possible. A tiny virus has brought all of us to our knees, and now we are all struggling to get up and see what kind of life we have to live after this. And so I've been thinking a lot, especially during COVID, when we were all, stuck at home and pretty much desperate and hopeless. I did a lot of thinking, and then I sort of, we all blunder into things, we kind of run into things, and we say, oh, so this is something. So for me personally, I thought that it is so important now to reinvent and become a new person who can, take on the challenges that the new reality of our lives has brought us to. Before that, I have a confession to make, and I think it's really important for you to know who I am before, I give you sort of a gyan. So I grew up in the late 60s in a small suburban town in Mumbai to a family of very modest means. My father was a very honest railway man, and we lived in a tiny house by the tracks. And so literally, quite literally, I was a girl on the wrong side of the tracks. We had pretty much nothing to pull us out of those circumstances. We had no money, we had no connections, no rich relatives, nothing but our own spirit to pull us out of that. To add to my sort of pain, I was also that classic average Jane. I was that girl, that very shy, reclusive girl who was at the back of the, I always sat at the back of the classroom because I was scared my teachers would notice me. And in those days, teachers had this habit of, I don't know how it is now, but definitely in those days, teachers had this vision. They would immediately spot the weakest one in class and then stand up and make you answer some questions. And I was so sort of dumbstruck, if you like. I couldn't bring myself to talk. So I was always on the back bench trying to blend into the wall. So I was that person. And so pretty much, I think I had just 1.5 friends till the time I was 16 or 18 or something. I was that kind of person. And when I actually passed my 10th and 12th standard with 65% marks, my family was overjoyed. They never thought I would make it. And my sister, who was super smart and cool and class topper, she probably, sighed with relief because nobody could stand the trauma of, sibling flunking exams. So, for that girl to grow up and to stand on platforms, be invited to talk at places like IIMs and some of the top corporate houses in this country, I think it's really a privilege, a dream come true, and a very rare opportunity. And if I've been able to do that, ladies and gentlemen, it is because I have very consciously pressed the reinvent button on my life. I'll break it down in just a minute for you, what reinvent means for me. So I think the first, the R in reinvent for me stands for reaching out. That is really crucial. We all realized how painful it was to live without each other, isn't it, during COVID? We were all separate, we were all living in silos and no human contact, nothing. And getting on a video call is not the same as reaching out and touching somebody, your friend, your mother, your sibling. And so I really think that reaching out is important. It's only when you reach out to somebody that you can benefit from their warmth, from their kindness, their compassion, and most important, you can benefit from the wealth of experience each of us carries inside us. So when we have a crucial decision to make, we want somebody's opinion, that happens only when we reach out. And the universe is actually, this is one of the things that Shah Rukh Khan says all the time. And he said this when I interviewed him a few years ago also, that life is all about being together, forging bonds, reaching out. And when you want something really badly in life, ask the universe for it. And the universe is actually waiting to help you. Only we think that, oh, nobody is going to help us. You know, we assume that nobody wants to help us. So reaching out to people is really important. The E in reinvent for me stands for envisaging your life. You know, each of us need to envisage the life that we want for ourselves. It can be the next big job, it can be the next vacation, it can be the next whatever dream you have. But we do need, it's very important for each of us to envisage what we want and then make a roadmap for it. And you know, a roadmap might sound very scary, but it just means the scheme of things that will take you towards your decision. And then to systematically, even if it is very slowly, but systematically make your way towards that destination. Success, peace of mind, joy, health, none of this comes by accident. It comes by knowing what you want to do and then making all the moves that are required to get there. And you try it, even with the smallest goal that you have, in your individual lives, it can be something as simple as 6 months from now, I want to go on a vacation with my mother somewhere. And when you say that, you would say, oh my God, where am I going to bring the money? What am I going to do? How will I do it? But if you have a roadmap and every day if you make a small little step towards it, it will happen. It is just that we are often too lazy to do it. We are mostly lethargic or we are just too caught up in our everyday lives. So we put the rest of our lives on hold, and that, I think, in the world that we live in now, I think it's come to a stage where whatever we want to do, we have to do now. We all now know that life is so transient. What is there today might be not there tomorrow. It might not be there an hour from now. So do whatever you want, do it now. The I in, if you want an example, and I really want, I also wanted to say, when I spoke about R, I want to talk to you about one more point that is in R, and that is resilience. And that is a virtue, that is an attitude that I think is really called for in this day, especially in the times that we live in now, so uncertain, everything is so uncertain, and we can very easily get disheartened, we can easily lose hope in the way things work these days. Resilience is something that will really carry you forward. And here I want to talk to you about, a long ago conversation with Biocon's founder Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw. I was writing my book Devi Diva She-Devil, and it's a book of, I started out by wondering why women, when they set out to do something in life, they always get a label. If you're that Sati Savitri, stay at home, then you are the Devi, and everybody loves you. If you are the woman who calls the shots, then they say bossy pants. She's the she-devil. And so I was always wondering, why do women get these labels, and how do we get past these labels and get to see the woman who is there behind all these labels? And I called the book the Smart Career Woman's Survival Guide. And so one of the things I did was to go and meet Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw for this thing, and I had the most amazing conversation with her. When you really scratch the surface, there is so much more to each of us, not just a woman. There is so much more to each of us, but we all tend to build layers upon layers of, what we really want to show the world. What we are inside is really hidden. We don't trust ourselves to be vulnerable anymore. But I remember this conversation with her, and she was talking to me of the time she came back from Australia. Her father had wanted her to go to Australia and do her master's in brewing technology. And she was the only girl there. And they all laughed at her, because back in those days, this must have been like 40, 50 years ago. And she says, back in those days, it was very, very rare for a woman to do something like this. And I was in a class full of Australians who thought that it is a joke that a woman from India has come and she's doing this course. She says, I did that course, I came back with a heart full of hope, and she started applying for jobs, and to her horror, she realized that not a single brewery wanted to entrust their business with a woman because they didn't think it was a woman's job. A woman had no space in that industry. It was an all-male kind of club, and no woman could do it. And when enough people had said no to her, she said that I got really mad. And I said, if they don't want to employ me, then I will create something for myself. And that's how she decided to form Biocon. Biocon, it's all of you know that it's one of the best known companies in its field just now, and she's one of the world's most admired leaders. And she said that company was started in the backyard of her house, in a tiny little room in the back of the house. For almost 6 months, it was just her and a lady she had hired to assist her. And she said our job was to just come to office and wait for people to come and join us. And she said, I found there also that nobody wanted to join Biocon for 2 reasons. One, it was a company run by a woman, and 2, it was a startup started by a woman. She said that was like nobody wanted. She said all the eligible young men who came there would come attend the interview and then just disappear because their parents didn't want their boys to sort of endanger their careers by working for a woman who possibly did not know what she was doing. I think that is a big mistake. Look at what she's doing now. And those men would have, those candidates would have done really well if they had been with her. So resilience, that willingness to withstand all the challenges. How can we cultivate it? I think each of us can find our own way to cultivate it. I really believe that a little bit of spirituality, a little bit of cultivating some sort of hobby, some sort of sport, reading up the masters, there is so much you can do. Spending time in silence, I think that is something that none of us do, especially now when we are all hooked to our phones. Most of us are hooked to our phones. So that silence, that time that you could be silent. Somebody told me once that I told a friend of mine that I get bored very easily, and a friend said that learn to be your own friend, learn to be quiet with yourself. Because it's only when the well is empty that water will flow into it. So it's only when your mind is empty that ideas will come into it. New ideas, innovation, creativity, all of that comes with silence. So all of us, I know it's difficult. Like I spent the last 2.5 hours sitting in that room scrolling Instagram. So I have no business telling you all to be quiet, but it is something that helps me. When I'm writing something or when I have some crucial things to do, I spend half an hour in silence. I don't talk, I keep my phone away, and then the things, like whatever issues are there in the head seems to get sort of resolve itself. So R is also for resilience. I said, E already I finished. The I in reinvent, ladies and gentlemen, is for instinct. When all of it is done, when you have reached out to people, you have taken their opinion, you have you have an enriched body of knowledge on anything that you want to do. I think it is so crucial for you to sit quietly and listen to what your heart is saying. And I have always found it in my own life. I have found that listening to my instinct has helped me more than dozen well-informed people telling me what to do, because your heart knows. You know what you're capable of. You know what you think is right or wrong, or So listening to your instinct is very, very important. A long time ago, in 2010, I wrote my first book, my debut book, Leading Ladies, Women Who Inspire India. And every time a book is launched, you go on a book tour. And in 2010, I went to every nook and cranny of this country. I met people in small towns and large cities, in airport bookstores. And wherever I went, there would always be somebody who would come and tell me, you know, ma'am, I have this idea and I want to write about this, but I really don't know how to write a book or write anything. The way writing is taught in our schools and colleges, it's all about my summer trip to something or my vacation in my grandma's house. You know, it's those kind of stuff. There is no creative writing taught the way it should be taught. So most people, especially of my generation, don't really know how to express themselves. When enough people had told me that they want to write and don't know how to write, I thought to myself, this here is an opportunity. And I love that I can reach out to somebody and give them the knowledge that I have. And here it was like, writing is like second skin to me because I started writing as a journalist at the age of 20. So writing is like sleepwalk for me. I can do it, so easily. And I said, let me start a writing workshop. And when I said this, I had no clue. I'm not a good teacher. When I was younger, I was much more impatient and I didn't have the patience to tutor anybody, or I never thought I would make a good teacher because I was terrified of teachers in school. And I didn't want to be one of those people. But the idea itself consumed me so much that I could actually give life to somebody's need to write and express themselves. And a lot of people, especially friends, told me, don't do it. You know nothing about teaching. Your people skills are like doubtable. And also you're risking your 25-year career as a journalist and writer. So don't do this. This is not your space at all. After having heard this, I took a few hours one day, just went and sat somewhere quiet, and I wrote down the pros and cons of it. It's not often that I do it, but that day I felt that I must write the pros and cons. And then I realized that I must do it. That if I don't do it, it's an opportunity loss. In 2011, in Pune city, which I adopted as my home after years of living in Bombay, I announced my writing workshop. It was India's first writing workshop. We never had the concept, and even now there are a few, but back in 2011, it was a very, very unheard of thing. And I didn't expect anybody to turn up, frankly, for the workshop. I announced the venue, I went there with my heart in my mouth. 45 people turned up. And for Pune in 2011, that was a lot of people. And they were from age 8 to age 18. And they wrote with such enthusiasm and with such gusto. And that taught me more than anything else. It taught me that it's important to listen to yourself. It's important to listen to your own instincts about stuff. Because only you know you the best. So that is important for all of us, that you know more than anybody else. So trust yourself and value your own opinion. That's important for us. Having said that, there's another that I want to talk to you about, and that is invest in yourself. A lot of us, I think most of us, we think that our education, our learning is over the day we finish our MBA or whatever it is that we have chosen for ourselves. After that, there is nothing. Now we are only just going to sit in the office and work like drones and work office and do nothing else with our lives. And that is, I think that is really, that's an opportunity loss. So, I think it is important to periodically, consistently update yourself, learn new skills, learn new things, do new things, and remain relevant in the game. And this is for everything. It is for your workplace, it is for your relationships, it's for your marriage, it's for everything. You have to be on top of it. You have to be relevant. You have to know how the game works. Otherwise, you're out of it so fast, you don't know what to do. So when I started Get Writing, I did not just blunder into it. When I made up my mind that I'm going to start this, I went to the US and not everybody can do that. I went there because my husband was at that point living there and working with an IT company. But I went there and I did a series of workshops with some really top-notch writing workshops there. So when I came in and I started this workshop here, I really knew what it involved and how to do it, and so investing in yourself is really important. At this point, where all of you can think, when was the last time you did something new or learned something new? It's important. Sometimes you need to underline it and still think about it, and then you realize, oh my God, this is like really true. The end in reinvent for me is to nurture a dream. And this again is something that all of us have dreams, isn't it? Some of us might have big dreams, some of us have just tiny dreams, but we never find that right time to pursue those dreams. We just keep putting it off. Next year I'll take 6 months off and I will do it. Next week I will do it because this week I have too many deadlines. So those dreams just go under the pile of things that we have to do. Our dreams also disappear. I want to talk to you about this lady, and she's now Chanel's new CEO. I knew Leena Nair from way back in 2013 when I met her for the writing of one of my books. And I was amazed. She was then head of HR in Hindustan Unilever, and I went there and we had this amazing conversation, hours and hours of conversation with her. And she told me that she grew up in Kolhapur, and she says, when I was growing up, there was nothing. She belonged to a very wealthy business family in Kolhapur. But she says, despite all the empowered people in that family, nobody told me that I had any other role in life but to finish my education and get married. And she said, but I was not ready to get married. I had dreams. I had nothing against marriage, but I had dreams. So she set out, she did an engineering thing. Then she followed it up with a degree in HR. And she says, in the late 90s or early 2000, she said, she joined Hindustan Unilever. She walked into the Hindustan Unilever office as a management trainee. And she said, I instantly fell in love with that organization. And she says, I made a silent promise to myself that one day I am going to be the executive director of this company. And she says, I never told that dream to anybody. And she says, every time appraisals came, every year, there was an interview for all of them. They would ask, so where do you see yourself 2 years from now or 5 years from now? Where do you see yourself in this organization? And she would always say, I will be one day executive director in this organization. And she said, it had become like everybody knew that this is what I'm going to say. And it was like, this is Leena. 15 years after she joined Hindustan Unilever, she became the organization's first ever female executive director. And that was like, it made a mark in the global organization. And she says that it did not come to me by simply manifesting that I want to become executive director. She said, I did everything that was needed to be done there. I learned, I updated myself, I went to the shop floors, I worked with all the trade union people, I worked with the workers who ran our factories. She said, I found mentors and learned from them. So nothing was by accident. She made it happen. And she says that nurturing that dream was so important for me. Every day I would wake up, I would remind myself that I have a role to play in this organization. Leena's dream really did not stop there. 2 years from there, she became global head of HR of Hindustan Unilever, relocated to the US, to the UK, and became the special officer reporting to the global chairperson of HUL. What are the chances that a girl from Kolhapur, who nobody wanted to work, would do that to her life? Very, very low chances. But she says, I made it happen because that was my dream. And I made it happen. Of course, a few years later now, when she joined, 2 years later, she joined Chanel as its CEO. And I am keenly watching what her next moves are. So nurturing a dream is, don't let that dream go away. Don't think that your dream is not important or relevant at any stage in life. Keep that going. the we in reinvent for me is the good. All of this in the world that we live in, all of this seem to be like most people say honesty wo kya hota hai? You know, नहीं ये सब करना पड़ता है. So many times when I love meeting people. I think that's my journalist part of me. I love meeting people, listening to their stories, and hearing how society works. So even if I'm sitting in a cafe, I'm always listening to people's conversation. And so many times I hear this term, ऐसे नहीं चलता है ना, वो तो देना ही पड़ता है, पैसा देना ही. You know, so our level of honesty and integrity has so much devalued that we have taken it in our stride to pass on a couple of thousand to get a passport made or a license made, or for everything there is something to be given under the table. So I always say that try and stick to those values. Okay, never mind the giving of things, but small things like respecting your elders, respect for a little bit of tradition. All of this is also part of who we are. So a little bit of spirituality. So these are the we agreement is for that. It is also for venturing into the unknown. It's only really, big things happen to people who really step off the diving board. I really think that if you would just sit on your office desk every day and do the same old thing, your life is not going to dramatically change. But if you go out one day and say, I want to do something else in my life, I want to make a difference in other people's lives, I want to live my life the way I want to live it, then those big things start happening in your life. I want to talk to you about Neha Arora, a very, very young girl who I know, who I met at an event in Bangalore called the India Inclusion Summit. It started by an amazing person called V.R. Firoz. Dear friend of mine, he was head of SAP here, and now he's playing a global role in the US. He started the India Inclusion Summit and in Bangalore. It's a giant 2-day celebration of people with disability. And he told me once, we co-authored a book together called Gifted, which is stories of people with disability. So he started this India Inclusion Summit, and there I met Neha. And what Neha actually does is she takes people with severe disabilities. She takes them on vacations, wherever in the world they want to go. She said, I started this because my mother and father were both disabled. And so my childhood was no fun because my mother and father were not mobile. And so there was nobody to take their children anywhere. So we just were at home. And she said it would break my heart every time somebody from the family went out or friends went out for family vacations and we just stayed at home. So she says, as I was growing up, this thing bothered me that people with disability in India have nothing. They have to just be at home and just live, push each day. Neha has been running this little company that she set up, and every year, several times a year, she takes trips. She lives here in Delhi. So she takes groups of people with disability to various parts of the world, and it is not just her. To do something so audacious, she has to actually put in a lot of groundwork. She has to liaise with hotels and travel companies and airlines, so that it is not a hard, nightmarish kind of process. It is her idea is, she says, I want my parents to have the same degree of joy and freedom that I experience when I go, on a vacation. So she stepped out into the unknown, and from that came this magical thing, which has given hope to so many people who otherwise would have spent their lives within the four walls of their homes. So stepping out of your comfort zone and venturing into the unknown is really something that we should try at least once in our lives. As a teenager who often watched Hindi films and romantic, movies a lot, and we watch all these actors on the silver screen, and I would say one day I want to be on the screen. One day I want to be on the screen. I never told this to anyone because back then, like I said, I was that very reclusive, shy girl, and there was no chance ever that I could do something like appearing on the silver screen. But I kept that dream very close to my heart, and 4 years ago, I did my first ad for Facebook, and it was a thumb series which went on to win several awards. It was a Facebook thumb series on different stereotypes around beauty that we have. So it was an ad for Dove and Facebook, and it just landed in my lap. Somebody called me and said, "Ma'am, we are calling from so and so director's office, and would you like to do this ad with us?" And I had zero knowledge of how this industry works. I was a journalist and an author. I had no idea of how these kind of things work. But like I said, venture into the unknown. So instinctively, without thinking whether I would be able to do it or not do it, I just said, yes, I'll be there tomorrow. And I went there, totally unprepared, walked onto the sets, and the director said, camera rolling, action, lights, action, and bingo. Like I was in another world, and before I knew it, the ad was shot, and I had found myself a new thing to do. And I actually discovered that I loved being in front of the camera. I loved the lights, I loved the camera, I loved the action around me. When I transformed myself into somebody else. And in a little way, I think that the make-believe world of the screen makes me forget my shy nature, my reclusive nature. But I never looked back since then, and I'm now part-time author and part-time actor, and I'm enjoying that so much. And it only happened because I said yes to venturing into something I did not know. So a lot of times I think the fear of failure keeps us away from doing what we want to do. I come again to the E of reinvent, and here I want to say it is empathy. And far few of us show empathy in life anymore because we don't have the time. We live in very fast-paced work-up environments where every hour there is a deadline, and every hour we are supposed to report to our reporting boss or whoever. I don't even know these software terms, but whatever it is that we are doing things all the time. So we really don't stop, pause for a moment, look at our colleague, try to figure out why she's looking tired or sad or whatever. There is zero time for empathy in our lives. We are not. The thing that's going on in Gaza, for instance, like we don't think other than what we see on Instagram. I'm not sure how many of us think about what's happening to those families. 40,000 people killed already. So I think empathy is something that we really need at this juncture in our life. And when I talked about Feroz, who started, India Inclusion Summit, I want to tell you about an amazing thing that's happening at SAP. You possibly know about it also. But Feroz's son, he was MD at SAP here. His son was born autistic. And he told me that when he was born, and as we were trying to raise this completely non-verbal child, he says, I learned so much about life by trying to raise him. Because that child couldn't even talk. But he says that even then, even when he was 3, his intelligence really blew me away. He was so intelligent. And then Feroz started this, he and his wife also, 90%, they started researching autism, and they started talking to scientists and researchers and doctors, and found out things about autism that really was not very well known about. And then he started what possibly is a game changer for SAP. He found out a group of people with autism, young minds, young people. He gave them iPads and he gave them jobs as quality testers. and he put them on the job, and a month from them, it was actually like a research lab for them. A month or a few months down the line, he found that the productivity and the efficiency at work that these people with the autism spectrum was much better than the others, normally abled people. And he said it was just like a miracle to find this, that the people we think can do nothing in their lives, they can contribute so much and they did their jobs with so much precision because they had no other distractions in their lives. So they did this job so well. And he says, we tried this on for a year, and then he went with this to the headquarters, and he showed this to the people who take decisions at the headquarters. And they said that this is so dramatic and this is so miraculous that we have to try this at all our locations. And a few years ago, SAP announced by 2025, 1% of their total global workforce, and this run into lakhs of people, at least 1% recruitment would be people on the autism spectrum. And this thing has got them so much results that there are a host of other European companies now following this model. And all of this happened because of one person's empathy towards a group of people who we all, sideline. We think that, okay, they are different from us and they cannot contribute to us in any way. So empathy, you never know, what they are diamond in the rough. That's how it is. We just have to go under the surface and see what's there, and that is empathy. And he said that while doing this, I thought I was doing something for them. But he says at the end of it, when we started showing results, and when I started seeing what it was doing for them, he said I was a beneficiary. The joy and the contentment that it gave me to see that I have done something for somebody. So that gift of giving something to somebody was, he said, I learned and I benefited more from this thing than anybody else. So it is something I think we all should think about. I come to the last two alphabets. The N again is for naysayers, saying no. Saying no. I think saying no is something that we all have to learn. A lot of us don't know how to say no, and by not saying no, we end up doing a lot of things, especially women. We have been told women have to be nice, women have to be pleasant, women cannot ask questions, don't disagree, don't argue. So we end up doing stuff that we really don't want to do, and then we become this impatient human beings who nobody likes. So learn to say no. I want to tell you the story of a very senior lady in the banking industry who once told me that when I got married at a very young age and I went to this family where my mother-in-law loved cooking and she wanted elaborate cooking through the day. And through the week we were, entertaining people and showing off our culinary skills, and she said that it drove me crazy because I had to do this, then I had to go to work, and I had to prove my intelligence there as well. And she said this went on, and she says in the first month I realized that if I don't say no here, then I'm going to end up in a very bad spot. So she said I sat down with my family and we had this discussion. She said it was a very delicate negotiation. And she said, I told my family that during the week, I'm not available for birthday parties, visiting friends, weddings, and elaborate cooking. Come Friday evening till Monday morning, I'm all yours. And we can do all the cooking we want, and all the entertaining and the weddings and everything. But during the week, no. And she said, saying that no empowered me, and it also liberated my family. They also knew they can do their own things during the week and not wait for me. And she said that in a way it brought my family closer because we could spend more quality time together. But the naysayer thing that I meant, I want to talk to you about another of my favorite women in India, Mary Kom. And her story, I interviewed Mary Kom in Pune where she was practicing for the London Olympics. And I met her several times in those days, and she would come back fagged out, totally tired from the boxing ring, but she would come straight to me and would sit and discuss her, amazing journey. And she talked to me about how saying no, the people who said no to her, empowered her. She said, throughout my life, right from the time I was a little girl and I wanted to become a boxer, all I heard and experienced was the cynicism about my dream. She grew up in a little village in the hills of Manipur, and she said that at first they told me, you're a girl, you can't be a boxer, girls can't be boxers. And she says, why not? She says, have you not seen me stand knee deep in water in the fields and help my father in the field so that we can put food on the table for my family? And they said, no, but that's okay, but you still can't be a boxer because you're a woman. So she said, I decided to ignore that. She secretly convinced the coach of the male group who were learning boxing there, and he taught her boxing. And eventually it became difficult to keep it a secret that she's learning boxing, because she started going to district level matches and winning those matches, and then her name started appearing in the paper. So it became difficult to sort of hide her talent. And then they said, how can you be a boxer? Because your life, a female boxer's life is very uncertain, because nobody will marry you. And even if they marry you, you cannot have children, because the physicality of boxing is so tough that you will not be able to have children. And she says that I just learned to cut out that negativity. Then she got married, and she got married to her best friend. And she says the day he proposed to me, the only thing I asked him was, what about my boxing? I will marry you when I know what you think about the boxing. And he said, I will always be the first person to cheer you on and encourage you. And she said that sort of made my decision. She says, the day that I went to honor from she said that the day I went with him and my father-in-law back to their village, she says almost the entire village socially ostracized her. Nobody would be friends with her, nobody would talk to her. They hated the fact that while they all led very humdrum lives, she was, traveling all over the country, winning accolades, named the paper, living a dream life. And she says, I was so disheartened by the cynicism and the hatred and how they didn't like me, that she said one day I told my family that I'm not going to do boxing anymore. I'm done with this. I can't take all this. And she says, my husband and my father-in-law sat me down and said, it is not your duty to listen to these voices. They don't mean anything for you. It is your duty to wake up every morning, go to the boxing ring, train, and go to the matches and win great honor for our country. That is your duty. And she said just those simple encouraging words from my father-in-law and my husband. She said that encouraged me and that empowered me so much that I said never again would I listen to anybody else's opinion or, cynicism. She says I completely learned to cut off from all the naysayers, and that liberated me to bring so much more honor, world champion, in a game which India never figured, and even the Olympic thing didn't, boxing was not on the Olympic radar also. But she says to be several times champ in a country where women are so little encouraged, she could only do it because of family support and because of the ability to say no. She says giving up on that dream was never an option for her. Never. She said that was my dream from the time I was a child. And even today, that's the only thing that brings the greatest joy to me. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, the T in reinvent is two very important things. One is to value time, your time and other people's time, to respect other people's time. And I always like to put it like this, that we are in this world for such a short while. our journey on this earth is such a short one that we should be very careful how we waste it. Make each minute count. Create memories, do things for yourself, do things for other people, and work. Like I'm saying this in a workplace, but everybody here is human, so they'll understand that. One day, if you want to just go and walk with your parents, your work will wait, but your parents won't. Their journey on this earth is like really limited. So if you have to do that, if you want to take your parents out one day to a garden or to a park or to see a movie, do that. Don't wait for tomorrow, because tomorrow might not exist. So that is really important. And the most important T is say thank you. Say thank you a lot. A lot of us live and are enabled and empowered by the things that other people do for us. Silently. We don't realize that they are empowering us, supporting us on our journey. We forget to say thank you to all those people who empower our lives. I'm sure all of you are here today because there is some relative looking after your family, there is some mother or father looking after your child, or there is a nanny looking after your child, there is a driver who will take you home, there is somebody who gave you very good tea. All of these people enrich our lives, but we very often, even thanking our spouses or our boyfriends, we don't do it, boyfriends, girlfriends, we don't do it, we just assume, we take it for granted, it's their job, it's not their job, but they are nice to you, so we have to be nice to them. So say thank you a lot, not just to human beings, but to that superior force, if you believe in it. But I do believe that there is something superior, a superior force that runs the world. And so saying thank you will bring a kind of peace that nothing else does. And I have come to the end of my chat. I think it was long-winded, but I hope you got something from it that you will take home or at least ponder about on your way home today. Thank you for being very, very patient listeners. Thanks a lot. Thank you for having me.
I really think it was an awesome session, and I don't know about others, but I was making notes, and I'm going to ponder over these notes over and over again because, like ma'am said, it's not the big things only in life, but it's also these little things that make so much of a difference in who we are and who we really want to be or aspire to be. So a big, big thank you to ma'am, and if anybody has any questions, want to say something, I think let's, please do that. That will be really nice if anybody wants to say anything.
So one of the books that I wrote is this book called Legacy. And Legacy was written by me when my daughter was turning 21. And I thought I'll write a letter to her to talk about the really important things for a human being to be fulfilled and not just successful but fulfilled and find contentment. And then as I was writing that letter, I said, why should it just be my letter to my daughter? Let me speak to some of India's biggest minds and see what they have to say to their children, especially to their daughters. So this has everybody from Narayana Murthy to Prakash Padukone to a lot of people who we all look up to as leaders. And I learned a lot of stuff of what I speak from the things that I, during these interviews.
Actually, you've written a lot of books. There's so many books that you've written. Love to read them.
I think everybody is at the end of their rope now. They all have to go home. Thank you.
First of all, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. And I'm sure most of us must be enlightened a little bit by hearing you. So ma'am, I want to ask you a fun question. Suppose you want to throw a dinner party. And let's assume it's a fun, inclusive dinner party. And you have to invite 3 women and 1 man. Okay, so we women are a majority in that party. So who would those 4 people be? They can be anybody from the past or present. And so who would they be and why?
My mother, for sure. She is one of the most astute, strong, empowering women I have ever met in my life. she was really the trendsetter in our family, a pioneering woman. She never could get to work because back in those days, women were married off very early. She married when she was 16 and had 4 children and just spent her life looking after us. Just, she said that I wanted to be a banker because I don't know where that dream came, but she says I wanted to be in banking. But my father said, no, now you have to get married. But my mother has been really the pillar and the rock for me because she was the one who insisted that we finish our education. And the day I finished my graduation, I know that our family could not really afford for us to study more. But I said, Mom, it was her dream that I work for State Bank of India. For some reason, State Bank mein naukri was like the big dream. I said, Mom, I don't want to work in a bank. I want to do journalism. And I know she could ill afford it, but she said, I don't know what that entails, but if that is really what you want to do, then we will make it happen. She did make it happen, From the 2,400 rupees my father got as a salary, for the next 2 years, 800 rupees came to me every month. Because I went out of Bombay and went to Pune University to learn journalism. And I'll forever remain grateful to her. She's also the one who constantly reminds us. She has 3 daughters and a brother and a son. And a few years ago, my elder sister, who's a professor of science in the UK, she told my mother, I've had enough now. I'm tired now. I'm going to give up my job. And my mother called me up and said, do you know what Sabita told me just now? She said that she wants to give up her job. And she said, I told her that she has the privilege of great education and that was not given to her to just squander away. It was given so that she could apply it for a bigger purpose. So my mother will always remain. Ela Bhatt, I don't know how many of you have heard of Ela Bhatt. I've had wonderful conversation with her when I was writing my debut book, and she left a great impression on my mind. I think in many, many ways she shaped who I became in the next 10, 15 years. And she told me, I remember going to Ahmedabad and she lived in this very simple house, a tiny woman in khadi. She was a very strong Gandhian. And she sat on her jula and we spoke. And towards the end of the conversation, she said, Sudhabin, you know what? I have a request for you. And I said, what? And she said, you had all this conversation about empowering women and all of that. And I want to say that I have a dream for all of you city women. I want all of you to decide that once every year, for 10 days, if each of you could go to a smaller town or a village, or even if it is a maid in your house, if it is a helper in your house, if you could sit down, listen to them, listen to their girls, and figure out what their dreams are, and then empower them to go chase those dreams. That is where change will come from. That is how you can truly, really empower women in India. She said that far too many of us sit in our ivory towers in cities and talk about women's liberation and empowerment, but the women in our villages have dreams, but nobody to help them to do that. And the third woman I would love to bring to my party is, have you heard of Anu Aga? Anu Aga is a very, very well-known philanthropist. She was a former chairperson of Thermax Limited, an energy company, and she is the chairperson of Akanksha Foundation and Teach for India. So, lives in Pune and led the company splendidly after her husband passed away suddenly. And then one fine day, she said that this is not what I want to do. She's by education she was a social, she studied at this and she wanted to do social work, and she also an HR professional, and she said, no, I want to do more for the children of our country. And so she started Akanksha. Akanksha was started by another wonderful woman you must have heard of, Shaheen Mistry. And Shaheen Mistry went to Anu with her idea for Akanksha, and Anu then, gave a considerable part of her family wealth to support the growth of Akanksha, which now educates very, very